This is a download from BFM 89.9, the business station.
Hi, welcome to Breaking Bread. This is the show where we explore food through culture, conversations, and a whole lot of curiosity. I'm your host, Lo Yi Jun, a food writer and recipe developer from the Jun and Tonic blog. Every week on this show, we dive deep into an aspect of food in Malaysia, from speaking to chefs and restaurateurs about their restaurants, to exploring the origins of certain dishes, to geeking out over tasty discussions with food friends or experts. Before we dive into this week's episode, I have an announcement to make. Breaking Bread is taking a break. We've chugged along steadily every week for over 2 years now, so it's high time for a bit of a breather. So we'll be taking the next few months off to recuperate and refresh ourselves as well. But fret not, we'll be back in January 2022 with new episodes and a new seasonal format. Now on to this week's show. Our guest for this episode is Lincoln Lee. He's the co-founder of The Rice Inc., a social enterprise that's looking to start a rice revolution around the world, improving the livelihood of farmers and upping the standard of the rice industry as a whole. We'll be hearing from Lincoln about how The Rice Inc. started, the good work they've been doing with farmers in Southeast Asia, and what the future holds for them. So, without further ado, here's Lincoln from The Rice Inc. Hi Lincoln, welcome onto the show.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too. Thanks for coming on today. But yeah, just to start with, I know there has been a bit of a buzz around your company over the past 2 years. But for those who are not familiar with Rice Inc., what is it all about?
Yeah, sure, thanks. So Rice Inc., we're a social enterprise that's basically focused on changing the rice industry, in particular tackling smallholder farmer poverty and the waste that occurs. So up to 70% of smallholder rice farmers in Southeast Asia are still under poverty, and they can waste up to 30% of the rice before it gets to plate. It's due to a combination of lack of access to agriculture tech and also a very convoluted supply chain and a very fluctuating commodity market. So we hope to be able to break this cycle by giving them access to the proper agri-tech and trying to connect them direct to markets, farmers direct to markets, so that they can be able to uplift themselves out of poverty.
Right, I can tell already by your description you're very in tune with your company philosophy, and that's probably like to do with the start or the beginning of Rice Inc., because the genesis of this company was from the Hout Prize, right? And your pitch for that. Can you tell us like a bit about how that came to be?
Yeah, sure. So the Hout Prize is basically a social enterprise competition for uni students around the world. So this was back in 2018 when we were in university. And every year, the competition's hosted by President Clinton. So he announces like a challenge for them to solve. And in our year, it was to harness the power of energy to impact 10 million people by 2025. So because our team was from Southeast Asia, we really wanted to do something that was relevant to our region. And we sort of, I said we would sort of like stumbled upon the problem of rice. I remember it was very late at night. It was like a week before the first like pitch, and we had we didn't have anything to show for it yet. We were stuck. And we sort of saw an article that said 80% of rice is wasted before it gets to plate. And I remember it's quite funny because like it's like 2 a.m. and my co-founder at the time, he basically just like, what? Like, how can this be? Like I eat rice every day. How can 80% of it be wasted? And we've later found out that was the article was like false. It was close to 30%, but that still proves to us that it's a huge problem.
Yeah, that's like 30% is still a pretty high number considering like how many people eat rice in the world, right? And how much that amounts to. Yeah, so from there, I've heard about this whole journey of like how you pitch and then how you got funded in the beginning as well. But since 2018, how has your journey been, and how does the Rice Inc. look today? How is it different from that initial seed of an idea that you had?
So I think what the Rice Inc. today is very different from Rice Inc. back then, because I think back then we sort of understood like only one facet of the problem. Like we knew that, okay, some farmers lack mechanization, and that's why they waste a lot. So we just got to give it to them, and that's going to happen. But then I think as we progressed, we started to realize how every issue is connected to one another. You have things like who they sell to after they use the processes, right? Just because they get more doesn't mean they get a higher price for it. You get the depths that they have pre-harvest that they take, and that gives them pressure to sell fast. You get the fluctuating commodity market. And so we realized that there is no one-size-fits-all solution, and you have to sort of like, you can do what you do best. Like for us, it was sort of providing them the agri-tech that they need, but you also have to start to do more. You have to work on other parts of the supply chain, which is why we went into, okay, can we find them a better market? Can we connect them directly to the market? Can we help them sell better? Can we help them get a higher price for their products, and all these sort of other things?
Yeah, and the rice industry in each country is very different, right? And you started off, and right now as well, you are predominantly working with farmers in Myanmar, am I right?
Yeah. So we started off in Myanmar, and that's when we realized that when we tried to go to other countries, how different each country was. It's like a totally different landscape.
Yeah, so I was wondering, like, how did you pick Myanmar, and why wasn't the choice Malaysia, since a lot of your team, you guys are from Malaysia, right?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So when we first started, we focused on one aspect of the supply chain, which was the drying of rice after harvest. So how rice works is, after you harvest, you need to dry it, then you can mill it, or you can store it to mill later. And after that, it's the rice you buy from the supermarkets. So we focused on drying because we found that a lot of farmers in Southeast Asia still use sun drying. So this is okay, but it's very laborious and can sometimes cause a lot more wastage downstream when you mill, if you don't do it properly. So, and it's also quite stressful for the farmers, because it's like we hear stories of like them staying awake for like 5 days and 5 nights because they're afraid it rains or some animal comes to eat it or something. So we basically wanted to provide them a rice drying service with biomass powered rice dryers that would be much faster and more efficient at saving the losses. And at that time, when we tried to explore, could we implement it in Malaysia, we quickly realized at the time that the target area that we went to, they had already moved past sun drying. So because in Malaysia, the industry is more regulated, so farmers, they basically don't need to process it after harvest. They can just hand it off. And so we realized there wouldn't be a market for it. So we actually consulted with the International Rice Research Institute, and they recommended that we check out Myanmar. So that's sort of like what started off this journey, and we went there. It was, I think, a year later, we found out that maybe we were looking at the wrong region of Malaysia. So yeah, so that's always something to keep in mind.
Right. Which region was that? Yeah, just out of curiosity, which region were you looking at in Malaysia, and are other regions really different then?
Yeah, I think we initially looked at the rice bowl of Malaysia, so like Kedah, farmers over there, and that's where you get like, because like that they are essentially like the backbone of the agriculture industry in Malaysia. So the government has regulates it quite well and quite heavily. So the post harvest processes isn't really in the control of the farmers. So, and that's why we realized they don't sun dry anymore. So there's essentially not the product, the service isn't a fit for them. But we realized that in other parts of the world, like you get more like artisanal farmers, like in Sabah and Sarawak, and there the farmers themselves, they don't just dry, but they harvest, and sometimes they even mill it and package it and sell it themselves. So where the farmers have more control, then we realized that the service might fit over there in a better way then.
Right. Yeah. So right now you are in Myanmar, and are there other countries that you're working closely with as well?
So we're predominantly in Myanmar. We have worked in I guess Vietnam a bit, but we realized that I think in the future we'll probably be looking at Malaysia, which is why I brought up that we realized, oh, maybe there is a fit here. We just have to like look a bit harder. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess with you wanting to start, like, I guess a rice revolution, right? As I've heard a lot of times from many articles that you guys are in. But yeah, so that is like a very lofty goal, and I see, you have a very well set up like 3-step process that you want to put in place. Can you tell us a bit about that, and which step of the process are you in with Myanmar?
So Yeah, our three-step process is, I guess, quite straightforward. So step one is we realized we needed to give farmers agri-tech, but we also needed to create a market for their product. So we basically sell our rice under a sustainable brand called Paddy, and we reinvest those profits to help the farmers get sustainable agri-tech, like the dryers that they need. And then step two is once we have enough volume, we hope to source direct from the farmers. So basically connect them direct to market. And that will help us give them a fairer price. But it's still limited by the fluctuating commodity market, which is why we need to go to step three, where we think that if with enough sort of like consumer demand for sustainably and direct trade produced rice, we will be able to basically engage in. I think this happens a lot in more developed economies like the US and Australia, where farmers get sort of contracts ahead of time. So they get to engage in contract farming where if you grow the rice a certain way, you know you're going to get this price. And that gives them like more of a security instead of the climate now where it's like you're not sure how much you're going to earn when you sell it because the price can go up and down. And it normally goes down during harvest because of the supply and demand. So that's sort of like the three-step process. In Myanmar, we were in step one, giving them the agri-tech, and we're hoping to move to step two. We actually piloted a bit of step two in Malaysia just to see, like, can we connect people direct to market? And we realized that we would, I think right now, for Myanmar, we will have to put a pause on that because of the current political situation there. But that's why we're looking like, can we implement step two somewhere else?
Before we continue our conversation, we are going to take a quick break. Stay with us. You're listening to Breaking Bread on BFM 89.9. Welcome back to Breaking Bread. Let's pick up where we left off. I've been speaking with Lincoln Lee from The Rice Inc. We've been talking about his journey from halt price glory to his current day progress. But now we're turning our focus to the products they're selling in the UK as well as in Malaysia. So you were saying how you started almost like a pilot program in Malaysia with this direct-to-consumer brand that is called Paddy, right? And yeah, I saw that you started selling rice in Malaysia. And can you tell us a bit about the products that you are selling and different types of rice that you have?
Yeah, so it really started off with a conversation with a lot of different individuals in the rice industry, especially from like, I don't know if you heard of her, like Dr. Serena from Kazana. So she's basically the expert on like all things food and rice, especially. And she basically told us to look at, after hearing about it, she told us to look at Sabah and Sarawak. And we realized that actually there's a very big untapped opportunity there, because a lot of the farmers there, they grow very special types of artisanal rice, but they get very low farm gate prices for it, due to like a lack. It's a combination of like lack of knowledge, access, and like sort of expertise on how to leverage the product that they have properly. And you'll find that if you go to shops right down the street, you find their products retailing for about we found like up to 10 times the price that that they get like on the local markets there.
Right.
It's normally closer to three times in like commonly, but you can find up to 10 times. And there have been people who have been working on it quite extensively. Like I'm sure you've heard of Langit Collective.
Langit, right?
Yeah. So it's very community-based projects where you try to basically connect them direct to market and try to get them a higher price for their product, so you can then pass on that premium to the farmers. And I think that's what we tried to do, although it was in the middle of the pandemic, and we soon realized the challenges of operating within a pandemic like that. But I think our approach was we were looking at testing step two, the connection part, but we are trying to figure out how can we also implement like that first step where it's not just about like helping them sell, right? Because like you can just sort of package it and then like put it for a higher price and give them a higher price. But what you'll find is that sure, they might get like that extra like 10-20% that you give them higher, but I think what really helps them is if you can sort of instigate a change within the society. Like like step one is really about like giving them the tools that they need so that they don't actually need you anymore to implement step 2 and 3 after a while. Because if they have the proper agri-tech, they have the proper tools, then the farmers can actually take it upon themselves to start their own brand, like start their own company. And I think that was sort of like the approach we took, which we think is a bit more scalable, where if you give everyone the tools, then they would be able to sort of like uplift themselves.
Right. So I guess all the three products, the three rice that you have are from Sarawak then, and working with these farmers right now?
They're actually from Sabah.
Oh yeah, that's cool. And yeah, I think it's as you said, it's like a testing step, and you're trying to see where it goes over the next few months, right? But at the same time, this Padi brand of yours, you're also selling rice in the UK, where you and your team are predominantly based, right? Tell me a bit about the products, because they are different. They are not the rice from Sabah that you're selling in Malaysia, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
where are the rice from?
Yeah, I would love to sell rice from Malaysia all the way there, but I think that would be a bit of a challenge in getting it there. I think so. So actually, how it works is that Paddy as a whole, we mainly retail and sell in the UK, and I'll go into the reasons for that. But basically, it was taking the profits we got from there and reinvesting it back into the infrastructure work. For example, in Myanmar. And Malaysia was sort of a test where we realized, okay, we know we want to do step 2 in the future. Can we test it out somewhere that where we know like there's a, I guess, like a higher demand for a direct to market product, which is why we tested it in Malaysia. The reason we went to the UK in the beginning was because we realized that we would need to tackle a market that was a bit more receptive to paying a premium for sustainable products, like sustainable food, which is more common in the West than Asia, to be honest. Like you get a lot of like sustainable milk, proteins, and things like that. It's been a big movement there. So we decided to tap onto that, and to basically see, can we get consumers to pay a premium for the product so that we can then take that and pass it on and reinvest into the infrastructure.
Right. Yeah. So what are your longer term plans for Rice Inc.?
So yeah, I think the long-term plans are in twofold. We hope to be able to move to step 2 in terms of like where we basically build enough volumes in the UK to actually source direct from Southeast Asia to the UK with the farmers we work here. And I think we're gonna expand on the first step, where it's the agri-tech that we look at. We don't just want to be limited to dryers. We want to look at like what other aspects of the supply chain can we expand on. One thing that in particular that has been pointed out to us consistently is that everyone, it is quite interesting, everyone wants to help the farmers, but no one actually helps the people around the farmers, like the people who give the farmers the fertilizers, who sell farmers products, who give farmers loans. All these sorts of people are actually the people that sort of have if you help them, they have the impact to drastically improve the outcome of the product and the farmer's livelihood. So we actually been thinking like, well, can we actually take a different approach and look at these other players around the industry as well? Yeah.
And a lot of these other players around the industry will be part of the governmental administration as well, right? So are you looking to go more into that direction then?
Yeah, I think in Malaysia, they definitely are part of governmental organizations. I think it's a mix of private and public sector.
Right.
Yeah, so for example, I think you have, like, for example, some seeds and fertilizers in Malaysia for rice will be distributed by the government. But like pesticides and other things might be distributed by local, like privately owned companies. So I think we are looking to see, like, is there a solution over there, like a problem over there, that we can solve that actually will have a follow-on effect for the farmers? Because a lot of people are working on the farms, but very few people look at like, how can we help the people who actually control what goes into the farm.
Right. And you're looking at the Malaysian market to tackle next, is it?
Yeah, I think we sort of like learned from the past where in entrepreneurship, it's always easier to do it where you're based. Yeah, so that's one lesson we definitely keep in mind. So we're definitely looking to see how we can do it in Malaysia.
Yeah, and all the best with improving and starting a rice revolution in Malaysia. But I guess right now for Malaysians who wish to find out more about you or keep updated about what you guys are doing, or maybe even buy some of the paddy products that you're selling, where can they find you?
So they can go to our website. It's eatpaddy.com. And or you can check out our Malaysian beta site, which we are still testing. It's paddy.com.my.
Cool. Yeah. And I guess one final question, almost like a bonus question.
Sure.
Where do you think you are at in the journey of impacting your 10 million people by 2025 as your Halt Prize mandate is?
Yeah, I think maybe we got like a 1 year extension due to COVID. But
yeah, that's fair.
so I think considering the amount of farmers we've probably helped only like a couple of 100 to 1,000 at the moment, including their families. So I think to really help 10 million people, we would need to scale up drastically. So we're hoping that, I think what we've realized is that effect is exponential because we counted like the amount of farmers we helped. That number was in comparison to 10 million is not that high. But then we started counting like the amount of rice we've helped them save. And we realized that that amount of rice can actually feed over like 1 million meals. Right. So if you count it like that, then actually you're making a dent, because we realized if you can make even a dent on the wastage, right, of even like 1% of
it's a lot
entire rice industry, it's a lot. So I think we realized we had to shift our perspective, because when we counted one farmer, we were like, oh, we'll probably have to help like every single farmer in Southeast Asia. But yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like you guys are doing an amazing job, and I can't wait to see you grow over the next couple of years as well. But yeah, that brings us to the end of our interview. And I know there's a lot of amazing stuff that you guys are doing, and the story that you're on is like really interesting. So for listeners out there who are looking to find out more, do read up about them, check out their sites, and even buy their rice. So thank you so much again, Lincoln, for coming on the show and sharing with us.
All right, thank you, Yujun. Nice to be here.
That's all for this week's show. To listen to more episodes, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, or on the BFM app. And if you're hungry for more food news and fun recipes, you can keep up to date with me on Instagram. I'm at JunAndTonic, that's JUN.AND.TONIC. As mentioned in the introduction, this will be the last episode of Breaking Bread for this year. We're taking a 3-month break and we'll be back fresh and hungry in January next year. So I hope you eat well and live well in the next few months. And for the last time this year, this is Jun signing off. You've been listening to Breaking Bread on BFM 89.9.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find more great interviews, go to bfm.my or find us on iTunes. BFM 89.9, the business station.